Can you hear me? Okay.
Sekian lamanya aku rasakan momen latar belakang penyebab penyakit hati. Kupikir takkan berakhir, sempat terulang lagi. Diriku hampir inginkanmu lagi.
Check the song out. It's by Tarare. Really good song. I don't know what genre it is. Probably like some kind of like indie genre, like indie pop. That's what I guess. That's really good. My friend recommended this song. Nah.
Aku pernah terjebak. Sekian lamanya aku rasakan momen latar belakang penyebab penyakit hati. Kupikir takkan berakhir, sempat terulang lagi. Diriku hampir inginkanmu lagi. Sekian lamanya aku rasakan momen latar belakang penyebab penyakit hati. Kupikir takkan berakhir, sempat terulang lagi. Diriku
This song has to be in some kind of movie. So, really good song. Check them out. I haven't seen the other songs, but this song is just really good. Okay, let's back to studying. Let's learn about corporate issue. So yeah, corporate forms, corporate issue, features, and ownership. Let's go.
Let's get lost. 誇りをかぶった古い地図を広げて行き先も決めず飛び出した週末は潮汐でナビもせず寝ているお前窓の外は見たこともない中道迷うのも旅だって君の口癖その適当さに僕の肩の力が抜ける計画通りにいかないそれこそが醍醐味ハプニングを笑い話に変える魔法途中で見つけた夢の展望台そこで見た夕日一生忘れないだろうや道なき道進むワクワク隣に誰かがいれば怖くない、共にさまようその時間の愛しさ一人じゃ見落とす小さな奇跡目的地よりも道のりが宝物人間関係の楽しさが世界を広げる知らない街で入った定食や地元の人との何気ないやりとりどこから来たのその問いかけに二人で答えるその一体感が嬉しい自分という輪郭が少しぼやけて世界と溶け合う旅の魔法お前とだからここまで来られた一人のドライブじゃきっと退屈だった On the road no destination inside 君とのトリップ最高のフライト Oh I've been
Can't focus if the music is too loud.
午前の市のコインランドリー回るドラムと僕らの洗濯物の多い混ざり合う湿気誰にも見せられない情けない自分お前だけにはさらけ出せた不思議それもいいんじゃねって適当な愛知その軽さにどれだけ救われただろう重たい荷物を半分預けたような夜言葉の裏毛は探らなくていい静寂さえも心地よいリズムになる不器用な二人が見つけた正解飾らないままでいられる場所がある一人で抱えるより分け合う幸せ人間関係の楽しさが夜を優しく染める成功の階段急いで登る途中足元を救われて途方に暮れた時真っ先に電話をくれたのはお前だった慰めじゃなくくだらない自慢はなしで僕を現実へ引き戻してくれたそのずっとたさが僕の折れそうな背骨を支えた Deep talk under the moonlight 隠した涙見透かされてる Tonight Laundry turns memory burns slow お前との distance 変わらない flow 弱さを見せるのは負けじゃないと知ったガンプなの扉お前がノックした Thanks my shadow my brother in arms 嵐の中でも君は一番の charm 鏡に映らない僕らの絆光が強いほど影は深く結ばれる不器用な二人が見つけた正解飾らないままでいられる場所がある一人で抱えるより分け合う幸せ人間関係の楽しさが夜を優しく染める行き交う人々無数の物語偶然触れ合う刹那のつながり、yeah、馴染みのカフェ決まった席いつも会う老人が不意に釈した名前も知らないただな隣人でもそこにある気配に救われている世界は冷たくて無関心に言えるけど実は細い糸で編み込まれたセーター誰かの優しさが僕の背中を温める、yeah、見知らぬ誰かと呼吸を合わせる瞬間すれ違う一期一会の火花冷えた星に灯る小さな明かり、yeah、世界とつながっている確かな予感一人きりじゃないと風が教えてくれる偶然が織りなすこの美しい模様人間関係の楽しさが孤独を溶かしていく雨の日の駅 い傘を貸してくれた人らへも言えぬまま人混みに消えたその小さな勇気が連鎖していく、次は僕が誰かに手を差し出す番社会という名の巨大なオーケストラ僕の音色が誰かの響きと重なるそれはかすかでも確実なハーモニーよくさ一人が楽だなんて言うけど結局僕らが今日笑えたのは誰かがそこにいたからなんだよね駅のホームで目が合ったこともコンビニの店員さんの丁寧な会釈そういう名前のつかない関係性がこの街を少しだけ優しくしてるそう思わない Across the street a thousand souls それねのドローを演じる孤独は幻想つながりは reality 見えない糸で保つ gravity 一瞬のスマイルそれが救いになる乾いた心に雨が降り注ぐ We share the air, we share the ground 喜びの音街なけんさつながることで僕は僕になれる鏡のような他人論という存在世界とつながっている確かな予感一人きりじゃないと風が教えてくれる偶然が織りなすこの美しい模様人間関係の楽しさが孤独を溶かしていく信号が変わる正しい出会いの方へ
枯葉が舞う午後の静寂隣に座るただそれだけの時間何か言わなきゃなんて焦りはなくてただ並んだがれる雲を見てる君の呼吸僕の呼吸重なる世界から取り残されたような安らぎ言葉は時として邪魔になるからこうして沈黙を共有できる贅沢君の肩が少しだけ触れるそれだけで心が安定していく魔法意味のない愛をそれさえも愛しくて空っぽの時間がゆっくり満たされる何もしないことの本当の価値誰かと共にいる静かな照明一人の静寂より深い癒し人間関係の楽しさが時を止めてくれる走り続けて疲れ果てた午後に安およって僕の手を引いてくれた効率や成果そんな言葉は忘れてただの人間に戻れるこの場所君の瞳に映るありのままの僕飾る必要なんてない不完全なままその工程が僕の傷を癒していくパークベンセッション No words required 土台のノイズ今はもう expire 君のぬくもり最高のテラピー孤独な夜を書き換えるメモリー Slow down the pace Enjoy the breeze 心のロック君が持つキス誰横にいるそれだけでパーフェクト愛の形僕なりのリフレクト時計の針を今日は外しておこう心のままに風と遊ぶように何もしないことの本当の価値誰かと共にいる静かな照明一人の静寂より深い癒し人間関係の楽しさが時を止めてくれる だけ
右耳にお前左耳に僕混ざり合う二つのバックグラウンドお前が教えた古いソウルミュージック僕が勧めた新しいエレクトロ全然合わない好みが逆に刺激これやばくないって目が輝く自分一人の世界じゃ出会えなかった新しい色を君が筆に乗せてくれた僕のモノクロな思考がグラデーション鮮やかに変わる驚きとハプニングの連続 Yeah, place the shadow horizons expanded 君のセンス俺の脳に連で BPM シンクロ心地よいグルーブ新しい自分のステップムービーやほんの半分預けた信頼音楽の好みで暴く正体のスキップ needed every track is gold 二人の物語ビートに乗せて通る音の数だけ増えてく共通言語 Yeah, yeah, yeah 言葉以上に深く入り込むメロディー Yeah, yeah 新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げてゆく、趣味が合うことだけが正解じゃない誓いを楽しむその余裕が愛おしいお前の嫌いなものが僕の宝物、yeah、理解できないを面白がる贅沢そうやって少しずつ世界を許していく僕らの境界線音楽が溶かしていく、yeah, yeah、距離を超えた先に待っていたのは見たこともない輝くエモーショナル不協和音さえスパイスに変えて奏で続けよう僕らのアンサンブル、yeah、新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げていく
Wait, my mom is calling.
傘もささずに見上げた灰色の空二人でいればこれもドラマになるずぶ濡れのシャツ冷たさに震えてそれさえも面白くて腹を抱えて笑った悲しいことがあったあの日の僕を君は黙って雨の中に連れ出した泣いてもバレないよって笑いながら君の優しさはいつも少し乱暴でもその恋さが僕を救い出す軽みの中でダンスを踊るように降り注ぐ痛みが少しずつ和らが二人で濡れれば寒さも分け合えるどんな嵐の中でも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕の勇気になる一人で耐えるより一緒に濡れる幸せ人間関係の楽しさが心を浄化する
Income?
心を浄化する雲の切れ間から差した一筋の光君の横顔吸って気が輝いて世界はまだこんなに美しいと教えてくれたのは君のその瞳だった一人じゃずっと下を向いていただろう君がいたから空を見上げられた雨上がりの匂い新しい始まり昔さ雨が嫌いだったんだ 服は汚れるし気分は沈むし、いいことなんて一つもないと思ってた。でも君と出会ってから変わったよ。雨は空が僕らを一つにするための演説、そう思えるようになった。ずぶ濡れで笑い合える人がいるって、それだけで人生は成功なんだと思う。 Raindrops keep falling but we keep standing, but we keep standing。 君との絆最高のレンディング、悲しみさえも真実に変えて二人のストーリー加速させて Washing out the pain, feeling the vibe。 この瞬間を胸に Subscribe。 嵐の後には虹がかかるから一緒に行こう遥か彼方へ。冷えた指先重なり合う熱、信じることが僕の力になり、飲んだ嵐のだってでも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕勇気になりゆどんな嵐の中でも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕の勇気になる。一人で耐えるより一緒に濡れる幸せ、人間関係の楽しさが心を浄化する、心を浄化する。水たまりを飛び越えて
夜の鳥羽が足りる街角、ディスプレイの光背に受けて、今夜は少しかつての僕らに触れてみようか。割り勘で揉めたあの円錐酒やメニューの端に書き殴った青い野望、3時を過ぎて過ぎ落とされたプライドでもお前の笑い声は今も鮮明に再生される。あの日僕らは無敵だと信じて疑わなかった。なんきゃないただいただの若さという名の免罪符、重なり合う不揃いなリズム、同じ泥を跳ねて歩いた道、一人じゃないと感じたあの瞬間の温度、モザイクのように色づく記憶の矢へ、言葉にしなくても伝わっていた人間関係の楽しさが胸の奥で凝集する。 PC のカーソル追いかけるルーティン、 SNS の通知薄っぺらなつながりか、いや画面の向こうにいる誰かを落とした瞬間に思い出すこの不思議な感覚、元気かの人とそれだけで十分、絆はデジタルを超えてページを回していく、Look around we ain't solo と愛の雑踏、孤独なプロローグでもあいつのジョーク今も聞いてるぜ。ローキーな夜に一人で吹いてるサクセスの定義、人それぞれだけど笑い合える場所があるならそれでウィンだろう。 Time flies, memory remains gold、 語り尽くせない僕らのエピソード、完璧じゃないからこそ愛しい、ぶつかり合って磨かれたダイヤモンド、一人じゃないと感じたあの瞬間の温度、モザイクのように色づく記憶の矢へ、言葉にしなくても伝わっていた人間関係の楽し 肌まみれの指先笑い転げた残りっぽい秘密基地動かなくなった不注意エンジンの前で僕らは何時間でも未来を修理していた手伝うふりして邪魔ばかりするお前冷めたコーヒーが妙にでも買った午後予定なんてないのが最高のプランだった自由の意味をあの場所で学んだ気がする Hands dirty, heart clean Keep it real 10代の情熱今はどう感じるガラスの中響くインパクトの音意味のない議論朝までの逃避行 No money But we had everything ガソリンの匂い数起きるエナジー忘れないぜあの無垢な好奇心今も俺のエンジン回す努力源噛み合わない歯車がなぜか愛しくて笑いのツボだけは同期していた誰かと釣る新しい景色の輝き不完全なパーツが組み合わさる奇跡一人じゃ作れないメロディーがある人間関係の楽しさが日常を加速させる今のオフィス静かなデスクの上あの頃の騒がしさがふとと恋しくなる今日求めて見失う余白お前の無駄話が実は一番のスパイスだったたまには汚れて笑い合いたいよな綺麗なだけの毎日じゃ退屈すぎるから積み上げた時間は嘘をつかないたとえ道が分かれても猫はつながっている誰かと作る新しい景色の輝き不完全なパーツが組み合わさる奇跡一人じゃ作れないメロディーがある人間関係の楽し
What
さ
time is up? Almost up. I thought the first PowerPoint is only 8 slides. It's 1/8 up, so the second slide has around 24, so it's more than enough. But I'm gonna do some. I guess we can call it Q&A. Yeah, Q&A. I have an idea as well where why the fuck doesn't show? Are they playing a game called Secret Skyline? Not a game, but internet stuff. I can put this. That's the thing, I cannot see the The last night I was just finishing up this new city group layout where there's gonna be. So this is the main city where. Holy shit, I'm like this one. Basically where I built everything. So let's go child. And then yeah. I got a dividend. I got a dividend from Justin. Let's see how much dividend.
加速するタクシーを拾わず歩こうと決めた酔い覚ましの風少し冷たい街お前らの取らない仕事の口さえ夜空に溶けて綺麗な星になる明日がけなければいいなんて子供みたいなシェラ本気で笑い合ったアスファルトを蹴るそろいな足音僕らだけの自由なパレードの始まり誰もいない街僕らが主役ネオンの光がスポットライトになる、日常を脱ぎ捨てる真夜中の解放、誰かと分かち合う秘密の連帯感、一人の夜には出会えない恐怖人間関係の楽しさが闇を照らしていく、歩行町の上で叫んだあの決意恥ずかしくて今思い出せないけどあの時の熱量だけは本物だったお前が隣で強くなずいてくれたから世界が敵に見えても怖くなかったお前という味方が一人いるだけで人生はこんなにも大胆になれるんだ、I hear late late night stroll street light glow お前とのトーク止まらないフロー誰もいないシティ僕らのグラウンド自由の音響かせるサウンド、酔った勢いで語ったアンビション君のプレゼン最高のコンディション歩き疲れたらコンビニで一息この瞬間が俺の生きる like it 朝が来るの少しだけ遅らせて、今この時を永遠に刻む、日常を脱ぎ捨てる真夜中の解放、誰かと分かち合う秘密の連帯感、一人の夜には出会えない今日の人間関係の楽しさが闇を照らしてゆく拍手の音が現実を告げるまで拍手の音が現実を告げるまで真っ白な壁塗りつぶすインスピレーション君の筆先と僕の色が混ざる、計画性のない僕らの後は帰 重なり合うラインよくせぬ美しさ一人じゃ絶対に描けなかった高地君のでたらめが僕に自由を教える、綺麗すぎるのはつまらないって君の哲学が僕の殻を破る関数図なんてどこにもないけれど今描いてるこの感覚が全て混ざり合う色彩溢れ出すエナジー今日は音が最高のスパイスになる誰かと共に描く未来の地図一人じゃ描けない鮮やかな景色、ぶつかり合って生まれる新しい価値人間関係の楽しさが世界を得るってか失敗した線も君が書き換えるこれはこれでありって笑いながら完璧を目指す4連歌を楽しむその柔軟さが僕の心を焦かした社会という大きな壁に僕らの印を小さくても確かに残していく誰かの目に留まるその日を夢見て今日も二人秀を走らせる Express yourself let the colors flow 君とのセッション止まらないフロー壁をキャンバスに夢をグラフィティ二人で作る新しいシティ Red for the passion Blue for the soul 混ざり合って目指す一つのゴール一人の才能限界超えて二人のアート世界へ向けて、世界なんて誰にも決めさせない僕らの感覚を信じ抜くだけ、誰かと共に描く未来の地図一人じゃ描けない鮮やかな景色、ぶつかり合って生まれる
Not bad. 10 out of 10.
人間関係の楽しさが世界を彩っていく、
I'm gonna take a break. 5 minutes to listen to sing. Short break. After that, I'm gonna continue singing. The backyard of the house looks really good.
お互いの頂点を知り尽くしているだからこそ優しくなれる時があるお前らしいなって笑うその顔何よりの僕の肯定になると愛の幻想忘れさせてくれるこの隠れ家僕らの聖域明日の活力こうでチャージしてまた戦場へ戻ってくんだ Amber liquid deep talk classy night お前との絆最高の light just reflect it the soul base moves the heart 二人の物語 never apart years pass by we grew up wise お前の瞳に映る俺の rise old fashioned way keeping it true 感謝してるぜ my friend to you変わりゆく で磨くより輝く魂時間をかけて気づいたこのシーンで人間関係の楽しさが夜
Bro, get out of your house. Go to school. Go to school. Numbers purpose. Hey, you're not too bad. Nice content. This is仲直りのきっかけいつもからなくてお前の差し出した安いお菓子一つ悪かったなって言葉はなくてもその空気感で全てが許される完璧な関係なんてどこにもない歪んでいるから僕ららしいんだこのデコボコを愛していこうとも二人で作る唯一無二の形をねえどうして僕らはこんなに違うんだろうね好きな食べ物も休日の過ごし方も大切にしてる価値観もバラバラで一人の方がよっぽど平穏で楽かもしれないでもさ君とぶつかった後の何とも言えないすっきりした気分あれを知っちゃうともう一人の平穏には戻れないんやなだよね違うからこそ僕は僕を君をもっと知りたくなるんだCloudy vibes puzzling complete 君との関係最高のフィット不規則なシェイプ重なるフェイ愛と憎しみ神糸へのステイ Fighting for truth growing up fast この絆を永遠にラス違いを楽しもうありのまま二人のストーリードラマチックなまま壁を壊して向き合う勇気その先にしかない光があるぶつかり合う不器用な愛の形一人じゃ知れない自分の限界葛藤の先に見つける真実人間関係の楽しさが心磨いてく Yeah, basically education. Actually, how the doesn't have education.
Yeah, 少し増えたシワ大人びたスーツでも話し出せばあの頃の僕ら時間の壁を一瞬で飛び越えて記憶のアーカイブを二人で今癖になっていた空白の期間それさえも最愛のスパイスになるお前変わったなお前こそそんなやりとりが何より嬉しい止まっていた時計が動き出す重なり合う二つのタイムライン時を超えてつながる絵にしの強さ一人で歩むより確かな足跡最愛が
知らない場所での苦労僕が話すこの街での小さな成功刺激を受けてまた強くなれる友の存在は最高の鏡だまた会おうその言葉の思う次はもっと面白い自分を見せたいそう思えることが生きる糧になる僕らのパレードはまだ終わらない Back together like we never left for my eternal sight eyesight gonna give time flies fast but the bond is deep 守り抜いた約束 I gotta keep different paths but the same origin お前の成功俺の win-win next session looking forward to it 熱い情熱また燃やそうぜ bit 離れていても心は一つそれぞれの場所で輝き続けよう時を超えてつながる縁の強さ一人で歩むより確かな足跡最愛がもたらす新しいエネルギーを人間関係の楽しさが命をつないでゆく、
I think share repurchase like make your equity much more valuable because the supply is basically getting just like like it's lower. それだけで人生は十分すぎるほどあたかだと心がささやいている黄金色の光包まれる奇跡穏やかな波が心に寄せてくる安らぎを分かち合う至福の時隣に誰かがいる静かな皇帝一人の夕暮れより鮮やかな色人間関係の楽しさが心を潤していく明日への不安少しはあるけれど大丈夫だよって君が微笑むから根拠のない自信が湧いてくる君の魔法に今日も甘えていると愛の幻想が遠くの BGM 僕らのテラスは時間が止まった場所この部屋を守り抜きたいと思う君とために Yeah sunset glow feeling so fine 君との時間最高のワイン Golden hour magic in the air 二人の絆 nothing can compare Slow down the tempo enjoy the view 新しい明日へ refreshing you ただそこにいる君の存在俺の人生最大の恋さえ言葉はいらないただ手を握ってこの一瞬を心に焼き付けよう安らぎを分かち合う至福の時隣に誰かがいる静かな皇帝一人の夕暮れより鮮やかな色人間関係の楽しさが心を潤してゆく一番星を見つけて一へ帰ろう
デジタルを無視した泡の粒
Oh, really?
デジタルな海を漂うメッセージ深夜のチャットスタンプ一つで心が軽くなる不思議な今元理的な距離は遠く離れてても繋がっているという安心感のもふ一人の部屋ピシのファンが回るでも孤独じゃない誰かがそこにいる顔も知らない誰かの優しい言葉に救われる夜があることを知っている飛び交うしくなる愛のこと冷たい茶色に体温が宿る形を変えて届く人のぬくもり一人じゃないと光が瞬く新しい時代のつながりの楽しさ人間関係の可能性が世界を救っていくSNS のノイズ疲れることもあるでもそこで見つけた大切な同士趣味を語り合い夢をシェアして新しいコミュニティ僕らに居場所リアルもデジタルもそうキャメなんてない大切なのはそこに心が画面の向こう側の君の態度を信じてるこの新しい日の Connection analog heart 画面越しでも never apart Zero and one Creating a vibe 君の言葉に俺は subscribe Network of love Global and wide 孤独な夜も No place to hide Stay online Stay in touch デジタルのぬくもり Thank you so much 快速で解く思いのかけら明日への希望をどんくらさせ風と書く人のぬくもり一人じゃないと光が瞬く新しい時代のつながりの楽しさ人間関係の可能性が世界を救ってゆくおやすみの合図ログオフしてもつながってる
Next moment.
場所からのエルシャ from the room ここからならどこまでも届く気がするくじけそうな共に送る言葉ありきたりな頑張れじゃなくてお前ならできるって心の底から信じていることを伝えたいんだ一人の戦いじゃ限界があるから僕が後ろで風を送るよ倒れそうになったら寄りかかればいい僕らの肩はそのためにあるんだ響けこの重い空の向こうへ君の背中を強く押すように誰かを応援するその熱量一人で燃えるより明るい未来支え合うことで超えていける壁人間関係の楽しさが勇気をくれる僕が目な時君がいてくれたその恩返しをさせてほしいんだ情けは人のためならずと言うけれど君の笑顔が僕の喜びになる孤独な挑戦をパレードに変えよう何かがいれば道を開ける世界中に僕らの声を響かせよう僕らはここにいると Oh yeah
saying 俺は no fear backing you up like a solid rock 限界の扉二人で not believe in yourself like I believe in you 最高の未来つかもぜ true 絆は武器愛は防具二人のストーリー最高の Vogue
一人じゃないから強くなれる信じ合う心が奇跡を起こす
Volkswagen. Voice company have a legal right to sit on the seat of the boat with the unrestricted privilege.
支え合うことで超えていける壁人間関係の楽しさが勇気をくれる君の健やよ一番に湧いたタラララタタタラララタタバラバラだった記憶の団形今一つの大きな絵になる出会いと別れ喜びと痛みこれまでの全てが愛しいモザイク一人で生きてきたつもりだったけど振り返れば無数の手が添えられていたあの時笑い合った誰かの横顔あの時叱ってくれた誰かの言葉その一つ一つが今の僕を形作っている大切なパーツなんだ不完全な僕らが織りなす模様遠くから見ればこんなに美しい人間関係の楽しさが描いた奇跡一人じゃ完成しなかったこの人生つながることで僕は永遠になれるモザイクの輝きが未来を照らす明日出会う誰かもきっと新しい色僕の世界をもっと鮮やかにしてくれる恐れずに心を開いていこう人間という最高に面白い旅一人の夜 PC の前で思う生きててよかって心からそれは君がお前があいつがそこにいたから
結局人生って誰と出会ってどう笑ったかただそれだけのことなのかもしれない傷つくこともあるし面倒なこともあるでもそれ以上に誰かと心が通じ合った瞬間のあの震えるような喜びそれがあるから僕らはまた新しい誰かを求めて歩き出す僕の人生というモザイクに色を添えてくれた全ての人へありがとうこれからもよろしくね Full circle mosaic complete 君との絆最高の Great fragments of time Forming a soul 愛の力で目指す final goal No more solo We are a team 二人の現実超える dream Life is a canvas Let's keep it bright ありがとう全てのつながりに
That's about equity and stakeholders and investor and anti-state. Corporate governance.
巨大なモザイクを人間関係の楽しさが描いた奇跡一人じ じゃ完成しなかったこの人生つながることで僕は永遠になれるモザイクの輝きが未来を照らすまた明日誰かの笑顔に会いに行こうまた明日誰かの笑顔に会いに行こう
Couldn't stay calm.
右耳に前左耳に僕の去り合う二つのバックグラウンドお前が教えた古いソウルミュージック僕が進めた新しいエレクトロ全然合わない好みが逆に刺激これやばくないと目が輝く自分一人の世界じゃ出会えなかったから白を君が筆に乗せてくれた僕のモノクロな思考がグラデーション鮮やかに変わる驚きと発見の連続 Playlist shared Horizons expanded 君のセンス俺の脳にlanded DPM シンクロ心地よいグルーヴ新しい自分へステップムーブイヤホンの半分預けた信頼音楽の好みで暴く正体 No skip needed every track is gold 二人の物語ビートに乗せてどうぞどの数だけ増えていく共通言語言葉以上に深く入り込むメロディー新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げていく趣味が合うことだけが正解じゃない違いを楽しむその余裕が愛おしい、お前の嫌いなものが僕の宝物理解できない面白がる贅沢そうやって少しずつ世界を許していく僕らの境界線音楽が溶かしていく妖怪を超えた先に待っていたのは見たこともない輝くエモーショナル
There's a system where like the note how do you vote in picking vectors it depends on what type of system you use. I can still use this design equipment. I already covered my cost to company.
誇りをかぶった古い地図を広げて行き先も決めず飛び出した週末は書籍でナビもせず寝ているお前窓の外は見たこともない中道迷うのも旅立って君の口癖その適当さに僕の肩の力が抜ける計画通りにいかないそれこそが醍醐味ハプニングを笑い話に変える魔法途中で見つけた胸の展望台そこで見た夕日一生忘れないだろうや道なき道進むワクワク隣に誰かがいれば怖くない、yeah
ってことにしよ
その時間の愛しさ一人じゃ見落とす小さな奇跡目的地よりも道のりが宝物人間関係の楽しさが世界を広げる知らない街で入った定食や地元の人との何気ないやりとりどこから来たのその問いかけに二人で答えるその一体感が嬉しい自分という輪郭が少しぼやけて世界と溶け合う旅の魔法
Governmental
だからここまで来られた一人のドライブじゃきっと退屈だった On the road no destination inside 君との trip 最高の flight Oh map in hand new story to write 二人のエナジー燃えるよみ bright unknown places friendly faces 僕らの足跡刻む traces life is a journey glad you're here 隣に君がいれば no fear 迷子になってもそれ思い出新しい道を切り開いていこう共にさまようその時間の愛しさ一人じゃ見落とす小さな奇跡目的地よりも道のりが宝物人間関係の楽しさが世界を広げる次の角を曲がれば何が待ってるだろう午前の市のコインランドリー回るドラムと僕らの
Can you imagine walking and seeing like a big ass fucking ship right beside you?
誰にも見せられない情けない自分お前だけにはさらけ出せ
Is he going to school? It's a, I think he's going to school, that's what I'm
軽さにどれだけ救われただろう重たい荷物を半分預けたような夜言葉の裏では探らなくていい静寂さえも心地よいリズムになる不器用な二人が見つけた正解飾らないままでいられる場所がある一人で抱えるより分け合う幸せ人間関係の楽しさが夜を優しく染める成功の階段急いで登る途中足元を救われて途方に暮れた時真っ先に
Why are you using the black
くれたのはお前だった
glasses?
慰めじゃなくくだら
Is
ない
that the most the glasses that has the most people use this glasses? Because it's auto translation.
お前とのディスタンス変わらないフロー弱さを見せるのは負けじゃないと知ったカンプなな扉お前がノックした Thanks my shadow my brother in arms 嵐の中でも君は一番のチャーム鏡に映らない僕らの絆
How should I build
が
like
強いほ
in
ど
the
影を
books?
深く結ばれる不器用な
Like, I
二
can
人
put
が
that
見つけた正解飾らないままでいられる場所がある
Oh, I said the
一人
one.
で抱えるより分け合う幸せ人間関係の楽しさが
Oh my god,
夜を
it
優
is what?
しく染める
No, it's not. Ah, yeah, that's it. I have like two CDs. One is like the full CD, the other is like a province, like the other day. This is the city.
行き交う人々無数の物語偶然触れ合う刹那のつながり、馴染みのカフェ決まった席いつも会う老人が振りに釈した名前も知らないただな隣人でもそこにある気配に救われている世界は冷たくて無関心に言えるけど実は細い糸で編み込まれたセーター誰かの優しさが僕の背中を温める、見知らぬ誰かと呼吸を合わせる瞬間
I don't like this.
すれ違う一期一会の火花冷えた星に灯る小さな明かり、世界とつながっている確かな予感一人きりじゃないと風が教えてくれる偶然が織りなすこの美しい模様人間関係の楽しさが孤独を溶かしていく雨の日の駅傘を貸してくれた人らへも言えぬまま人混みに消えたその小さな勇気が連鎖していく
Special resolution, extraordinary generally.
社会という名の巨大なオーケストラ僕の音色が誰かの響きと重なるそれはかすかでも確実なハーモニーよくさ一人が楽だなんて言うけど結局僕らが今日会えたのは誰かがそこにいたからなんだよね駅のホームで目が合ったこともコンビニの店員さんの丁寧な会釈そういう名前のつかない関係性がこの街を少しだけ優しくしてるそう思わない Across the street a thousand souls それぞれのドローを演じる孤独は幻想つながりは reality 見えない糸で保つ gravity 一瞬のスマイルそれが救いになる乾いた心に雨が降り注ぐ We share the air, we share the ground 喜びの音街なきんさんつながることで僕は僕になれる鏡のような他人論というそんな
Initiating shit also honestly.
世界とつながっている確かな予感一人きりじゃないと風が教えてくれる偶然が織りなすこの美しい模様人間関係の楽しさが孤独を溶かしていく信号が変わる新しい出会いの方へ
Stakeholder network. Okay. Thank you. I need a big picture.
Yeah 枯葉が舞う午後の静寂隣に座るただそれだけの時間何か言わなきゃなんて焦りはなくてただ並んだがれる雲を見てる君の呼吸僕の呼吸重なる世界から取り残されたような安らぎ言葉は時として邪魔になるからこうして沈黙を共有できる贅沢君の肩が少しだけ触れるそれだけで心が安定していく魔法意味のない愛をそれさえも愛しくて空っぽの時間がゆっくり満たされる何もしないことの本当の価値誰かと共にいる静かな照明 一人の静寂
For my legal issues, exercise survive as a shared the official channel of communication between both.
けて疲れ果てた午後に休をよって僕の手を引いてくれた効率や成果そんな言葉は忘れてただの人間に戻れるこの場所君の瞳に映るありのままの僕飾る必要なんてない不完全なままその工程が僕の傷を癒していくパークベンセッション No words required 土台のヌエス今はもうエクスパイル君のぬくもり最高のテラピー孤独な夜を書き換えるメモリー Slow down the pace Enjoy the breeze 心のロック君が持つキスタで横にいるそれだけでパーフェクト愛の形僕なりのリフレクト時計の針を
There's also like a marketplace version. One shop, I'm happy with how things are going. If they started something really working, cannot be cool. Who buys a lot of shares, especially force the company to change, suing the company This is like a political campaign. An activist group that convince all the parties to in proxy and they can alcohol and they can and the offer and the chances of a huge chunk of shares from 300 to 800 votes for the company. Take up potential is not worth the threat of hostile development associated when the company issues a goal,
右耳にお前左耳に僕混ざり合う二つのバックグラウンドお前が教えた古いソウルミュージック僕が勧めた新しいエレクトロ全然合わない好みが逆に刺激これやばくないって目が輝く自分一人の世界じゃ出会えなかった新しい色を君が筆に乗せてくれた僕のモノクロな思考がグラデーション鮮やかに変わる驚きとハプニングの連続 Yeah, playlist shared horizons expanded 君のセンス俺の脳にレンで BPM シンクロ心地よいグルーブ新しい自分へステップムービーやほんの半分預けた信頼音楽の好みで暴く正体の skip needed every track is gold 二人の物語ビートに乗せてと音の数だけ増えてく共通言語 Yeah, yeah, yeah 言葉以上に深く入り込むメロディー Yeah, 新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げてゆく趣味が合うことだけが正解じゃない誓いを楽しむその余裕が愛おしいお前の嫌いなものが僕の宝物 Yeah 理解できないを面白がる贅沢そうやって少しずつ世界を許してく僕らの境界線音楽が溶かしていく Yeah, yeah 距離を超えた先に待っていたのは見たこともない輝くエモーショナル不協和音さえスパイスに変えて奏で続けよう僕らのアンサンブル、yeah、新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げてゆく
傘もささずに見上げた灰色の空二人でいればこれもドラマになるずぶ濡れのシャツ冷たさに震えてそれさえも面白くて腹を抱えて笑った悲しいことがあったあの日の僕を君は黙って雨の に連れ出した泣いてもバレないよって笑いながら君の優しさはいつも少し乱暴でもその恋さが僕を救い出す軽みの中でダンスを踊るように降り注ぐ痛みが少しずつ和らが二人で濡れれば寒さも分け合えるどんな嵐の中でも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕の勇気になる一人で耐えるより一緒に濡れる幸せ人間関係の楽しさが心を浄化する、心を浄化する雲の切れ間から差した一筋の光君の横顔水滴が輝いて世界はまだこんなに美しいと教えてくれたのは君のその瞳だった一人じゃずっと下を向いていただろう君がいたから空を見上げられた雨上がりの匂い新しい始まり昔さ雨が嫌いだったんだ服は汚れるし気分は沈むしいいことなんて一つもないと思ってたでも君と出会ってから変わったよ雨は空が僕らを一つにするための演説そう思えるようになったずぶ濡れで笑い合える人がいるってそれだけで人生は成功なんだと思う Raindrops keep falling but we keep standing but we keep standing君との絆最高のレンディング悲しみさえも真実に変えて二人のストーリー加速させて Washing out the pain feeling the vibe この瞬間を胸に subscribe 嵐の後には虹がかかるから一緒に行こう遥か彼方へ冷えた指先重なり合う熱信じることが僕の力になるよ嵐のだってでも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕勇気になるよどんな嵐の中でも一人じゃないと君の存在が僕の勇気になる一人で耐えるより一緒に濡れる幸せ人間関係の楽しさが心を浄化する、心を浄化する水たまりを飛び越えて
I need to Kok ngomong dah. Okay. The control function of an audits and both of the side may be as well. They may choose lower than this, reducing company have lower if they are allowed to engage in related party transactions or benefiting friends or family between the price per comprise procedure with respect to regulation what we can easily relate legal and professional tests. Failure to manage creditors' right can lead to debt default and bankruptcy. The benefit of effective government and stakeholder so that effective government is following the EGS, stakeholder management basically how you manage your stakeholder position, improve operational efficiency by ensuring that management on board incentives align their interests well with those shared. Avoid many legal and regulatory risks. Formal policy regarding conflicts of interest and the corporate possession can also lead to the development. Reduce the risk of debt default or bankruptcy, thereby revision the cost.
それ追いかけるルーティン SNS の通知薄っぺらなつながりかいや画面の向こうにいる誰かを落とした瞬間に思い出すこの不思議な感覚元気かの人とそれだけで十分絆はデジタルを超えてページを回していく Yeah Look around we ain't solo と愛の雑踏孤独なプロローグでもあいつのジョーク今も聞いてるぜローキーな夜に一人で吹いてるサクセスの定義人それぞれだけど笑い合える場所があるならそれでウィンだろ Time flies memory remains gold 語り尽くせない僕らのエピソード完璧じゃないからこそ愛しい
Only 1 minute nanti materinya gampang sih. This is not financial statement. Financial statement is so hard. In the event of a company liquidation, which of the following groups hold residual claim of the firm asset? Residual claim. It's divided between senior manager or I don't know, but residual claim. I'm thinking about like this residual is like leftover. Equity doesn't. It's between equity or no. Yeah, so a corporate governance system that primarily focuses on maximizing the market value of firm-owned equity is most aligned with shareholders. The corporate board structure, where the management board and the supervisor board operate independently, and the supervisor board typically exclude executive as well substitute. When a manufacturing company looks local revenue and does not bear the full cost of the environmental and institution is best described as regulated compliance failure, what is this? Conflict of interest is not regulatory compliance. The principal agent conflict between shareholder and a company manager most likely arise because principal agent conflict between shareholder and company manager. Principal agent conflict. Okay. A conflict between shareholder and a company manager most likely arise because between shareholder and a company have more information and may not see fixed dividend payment. Manager may choose a lower level of business risk than shareholder prefer. During an annual general meeting, the shareholder vote to amend the corporation by law or approve a merger will typically be classified as vote to. What is a tandem? A specific asset pledged by a company that will have a claim against the company people is referred to as a claim. Which committee of the board of directors is primarily responsible for ensuring the quality of the firm financial reporting and overseeing external audit. When an activist seeks to gain the voting right of the other shareholder to support their alternative proposal and board's candidates, this action is best described as
愛したパスタ少し伸びた麺それさえもネタにして笑い飛ばす食テク次はもっとうまくやるなんて次回結局デリバリーを頼む展開完璧な計画より予測不能なミスそれが僕らの愛しい日常のルーティンスパイスは愛情なんて難しい君とならさらっと言えてしまうんだ混ざり合う二つの個性が新しい味を作り出してゆくありふれた時間が一番の贅沢
Oh, mantap. Okay.
隣に誰かがいる
7 out of 9. IS 10. Yeah, man. Okay. That's fast. I tried two material. What? Not pretty sure. Dua dari enam. Nah, gue break. Kayaknya gue bakal break. 2 hours. We're going. Talk about working capital capital investment. Now this is Udah, you know what? I'm gonna take a break. Oh, try some. Dia kerja di sini. Kalau sekarang gimana berapa? Aduh, ini guys. Let's take a break. Brainstorm. Selama sejam aja lah. Yeah. I wanna really learn about linear algebra. Especially. To ask the right question is harder
As you can
than
probably
to
tell by
answer it.
now, the bulk of this series is on understanding matrix and vector operations through that more visual lens of linear transformations. This video is no exception, describing the concepts of inverse matrices, column space, rank, and null space through that lens. A forewarning though, I'm not going to talk about the methods for actually computing these things, and some would argue that that's pretty important. There are a lot of very good resources for learning those methods outside this series, keywords Gaussian elimination and row echelon form. I think most of the value that I actually have to add here is on the intuition half. Plus, in practice, we usually get software to compute this stuff for us anyway. First, a few words on the usefulness of linear algebra. By now you already have a hint for how it's used in describing the manipulation of space, which is useful for things like computer graphics and robotics. But one of the main reasons that linear algebra is more broadly applicable and required for just about any technical discipline is that it lets us solve certain systems of equations. When I say system of equations, I mean you have a list of variables, things you don't know, and a list of equations relating them. In a lot of situations, those equations can get very complicated. But, if you're lucky, they might take on a certain special form. Within each equation, the only thing happening to each variable is that it's scaled by some constant. And the only thing happening to each of those scaled variables is that they're added to each other. So no exponents or fancy functions or multiplying two variables together,
I mean,
things like
sine
that.
of x, it is
The
a
typical way to organize
polynomial?
this sort of special system of equations is to
It
throw
would've
all
been
the
a
variables
polynomial.
on the left and put any lingering constants on the right. It's also nice to vertically line up
I
the
think
common
sine of x is
variables,
just-
and to do that
it's
you might need to
unknown-
throw
I
in some
don't-
zero
I don't know.
coefficients whenever the variable
It's true.
doesn't show
It
up
is
in one of the
unknown, it's true.
equations. This is called a linear system of equations. You might notice that this looks a lot like matrix vector multiplication.
It is.
In fact,
Yes, it is.
you can package all of the equations together into a single vector equation where you have the matrix containing all of the constant coefficients and a vector containing all of the variables, and their matrix vector product equals some different constant vector. Let's name that constant matrix A, denote the vector holding the variables with a bold-faced X, and call the constant vector on the right-hand side V. This is more than just a notational trick to get our system of equations written on one line. It sheds light on a pretty cool geometric interpretation for the problem. The matrix A corresponds with some linear transformation, so solving Ax equals V means we're looking for a vector x, which, after applying the transformation, lands on V. Think about what's happening looking for a vector x, which, after applying the transformation, lands on V. Think about what's happening here for a moment. You can hold in your head this really complicated idea of multiple variables all intermingling with each other just by thinking about squishing and morphing space and trying to figure out which vector lands on another. Cool, right? To start simple, let's say you have a system with two equations and two unknowns. This means the matrix A is a 2 by 2 matrix, and V and X are each two-dimensional vectors. Now, how we think about the solutions to this equation depends on whether the transformation associated with A squishes all of space into a lower dimension, like a line or a point, or if it leaves everything spanning the full two dimensions where it started. In the language of the last video, we subdivide into the cases where A has zero determinant and the case where A has non-zero determinant. Let's start with the most likely case, where the determinant is non-zero, meaning space does not get squished into a zero area region. In this case, there will always be one and only one vector that lands on V, and you can find it by playing the transformation in reverse. Following where V goes as we rewind the tape like this, you'll find the vector x such that A times x equals V. When you play the transformation in reverse, it actually corresponds to a separate linear transformation, commonly called the inverse of A, denoted A to the negative 1. For example, if A was a counterclockwise rotation by 90 degrees, then the inverse of A would be a clockwise rotation by 90 degrees. If A was a rightward shear that pushes j hat 1 unit to the right, the inverse of A would be a leftward shear that pushes j hat 1 unit to the left. In general, A inverse is the unique transformation with the property that if you first apply A, then follow it with the transformation A inverse, you end up back where you started. Applying one transformation after another is captured algebraically with matrix multiplication. So the core property of this transformation A inverse is that A inverse times A equals the matrix that corresponds to doing nothing. The transformation that does nothing is called the identity transformation. It leaves I hat and j hat each where they are, unmoved, so its columns are 1, 0 and 0, 1. Once you find this inverse, which in practice you do with a computer, you can solve your equation by multiplying this inverse matrix by V. And again, what this means geometrically is that you're playing the transformation in reverse and following V.
That's cool. I forgot about that.
This non-zero determinant case, which for a random choice of matrix is by far the most likely one, corresponds with the idea that if you have two unknowns and two equations, it's almost certainly the case that there's a single unique solution. This idea also makes sense in higher dimensions, when the number of equations equals the number of unknowns. Again, the system of equations can be translated to the geometric interpretation where you have some transformation A and some vector V, and you're looking for the vector x that lands on V. As long as the transformation A doesn't squish all of space into a lower dimension, meaning its determinant is non-zero, there will be an inverse transformation, A inverse, with the property that if you first do A, then you do A inverse, it's the same as doing nothing. And to solve your equation, you just have to multiply that reverse transformation matrix by the vector V. But when the determinant is zero, and the transformation associated with the system of equations squishes space into a smaller dimension, there is no inverse. You cannot unsquish a line to turn it into a plane. At least that's not something that a function can do. That would require transforming each individual vector into a whole line full of vectors. But functions can only take a single input to a single output. Similarly, for 3 equations and 3 unknowns, there will be no inverse if the corresponding transformation squishes 3D space onto the plane, or even if it squishes it onto a line or a point. Those all correspond to a determinant of 0, since any region is squished into something with 0 volume. It's still possible that a solution exists even when there is no inverse. It's just that when your transformation squishes space onto, say, a line, you have to be lucky enough that the vector V lives somewhere on that line. You might notice that some of these zero determinant cases feel a lot more restrictive than others. Given a 3 by 3 matrix, for example, it seems a lot harder for a solution to exist when it squishes space onto a line compared to when it squishes things onto a plane, even though both of those are zero determinant. We have some language that's a bit more specific than just saying zero determinant. When the output of a transformation is a line, meaning it's one-dimensional, we say the transformation has a rank of 1. If all the vectors land on some two-dimensional plane, we say the transformation has a rank of 2. So the word rank means the number of dimensions in the output of a transformation.
Well,
For
it's more
instance, in the case
complicated
of
than
2x2 matrices,
that.
rank 2
Yeah.
is the best that it can be. It means the basis vectors continue to span the full 2 dimensions of space
Kalau
and the
rank
determinant is
kedua,
not 0.
that
But for
mean
3x3
it has,
matrices,
like,
rank
one
2 means that
solution.
we've collapsed, but not as much as they would have collapsed for a rank 1 situation. If a 3D transformation has a non-zero determinant and its output fills all of 3D space, it has a rank of 3. This set of all possible outputs for your matrix, whether it's a line, a plane, 3D space, whatever, is called the column space of your matrix. You can probably guess where that name comes from. The columns of your matrix tell you where the basis vectors land, and the span of those transformed basis vectors gives you all possible outputs. In other words, the column space is the span of the
I
columns
need
of
to
your
reread
matrix.
the material again.
So a more precise definition of
By
rank would be that it's the number of dimensions in the column space. When this rank is as high as it can be, meaning it equals the number of columns, we call the matrix full rank. Notice, the 0 vector will always be included in the column space, since linear transformations must keep the origin fixed in place. For a full rank transformation, the only vector that lands at the origin is the 0 vector itself. But for matrices that aren't full rank, which squish to a smaller dimension, you can have a whole bunch of vectors land on 0. If a 2D transformation squishes space onto a line, for example, there is a separate line in a different direction full of vectors that get squished onto the origin. If a 3D transformation squishes space onto a plane, there's also a full line of vectors that land on the origin. If a 3D transformation squishes all of space onto a line, then there's a whole plane full of vectors that land on the origin.
What the fuck?
This set of vectors that lands on the origin is called the null space, or the kernel of your matrix. It's the
Yeah.
space of all vectors that become null, in the
Tapi
sense
kalau
that they land on the 0 vector.
ranknya lebih kecil daripada
In terms of the linear system of equations, when
kayak
v
nggak full
happens
rank.
to be the 0 vector, the null space gives you all of the possible solutions to the equation. So that's a very high-level overview of how to think about linear systems of equations geometrically. Each system has some kind of linear transformation associated with it, and when that transformation has an inverse, you can use that inverse to solve your system. Otherwise, the idea of column space lets us understand when a solution even exists, and the idea of a null space helps us to understand what the set of all possible solutions can look like. Again, there's a lot that I haven't covered here, most notably how to compute these things. I also had to limit my scope to examples where the number of equations equals the number of unknowns. But the goal here is not to try to teach everything, it's that you come away with a strong intuition for inverse matrices, column space, and null space, and that those intuitions make any future learning that you do more fruitful. Next video, by popular request, will be a brief footnote about non-square matrices. Then after that, I'm going to give you my take on dot products, and something pretty cool that happens when you view them under the light of linear
Yeah,
transformations.
I
See
think that
that?
I learned this from not all of it, but I learned most of the idea. Like it changed my mind on like how to learn math. Yes,
Hey everyone, I've got another quick footnote for you between chapters today. When I've talked about linear transformation so far, I've only really talked about transformations from 2D vectors to other 2D vectors, represented with 2x2 matrices, or from 3D vectors to other 3D vectors, represented with 3x3 matrices. But several commenters have asked about non-square matrices, so I thought I'd take a moment to just show what those mean geometrically. By now in the series, you actually have most of the background you need to start pondering a question like this on your own, but I'll start talking through it just to give a little mental momentum. It's perfectly reasonable to talk about transformations between dimensions, such as one that takes 2D vectors to 3D vectors. Again, what makes one of these linear is that grid lines remain parallel and evenly spaced, and that the origin maps to the origin. What I have pictured here is the input space on the left, which is just 2D space, and the output of the transformation shown on the right. The reason I'm not showing the inputs move over to the outputs like I usually do is not just animation laziness. It's worth emphasizing that 2D vector inputs are very different animals from these 3D vector outputs, living in a completely separate, unconnected space. Encoding one of these transformations with a matrix is really just the same thing as what we've done before. You look at where each basis vector lands and write the coordinates of the landing spots as the columns of a matrix. For example, what you're looking at here is an output of a transformation that takes I hat to the coordinates 2, -1, -2, and j hat to the coordinates 0, 1, 1.
I'm guessing the green
Notice,
is
this means the matrix encoding our transformation has 3 rows and 2 columns, which, to use standard terminology, makes it a 3x2 matrix.
Yeah.
In the language of last video, the column space of this matrix, the place where all the vectors land, is a 2D plane slicing through the origin of 3D space. But the matrix is still full rank, since the number of dimensions in this column space is the same as the number of dimensions of the input space. So if you see a 3x2 matrix out in the wild, you can know that it has the geometric interpretation of mapping 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions, since the 2 columns indicate that the input space has 2 basis vectors, and the 3 rows indicate that the landing spots for each of those basis vectors is described with 3 separate coordinates. Likewise, if you see a 2x3 matrix with 2 rows and 3 columns, what do you think that means? Well, the 3 columns indicate that you're starting in a space that has 3 basis vectors, so we're starting in 3 dimensions. And the 2 rows indicate that the landing spot for each of those 3 basis vectors is described with only 2 coordinates, so they must be landing in 2 dimensions. So it's a transformation from 3D space onto the 2D plane. A transformation that should feel very uncomfortable if you imagine going through it.
Yeah.
You could also have a transformation from 2 dimensions to 1 dimension. One-dimensional space is really just the number line, so a transformation like this takes in 2D vectors and spits out numbers. Thinking about grid lines
Yeah,
remaining
that's
parallel
about-
and evenly spaced is a little bit messy due to all of the
I
squishification
think
happening
it's
here.
impossible
So in this case, the visual understanding for what linearity means is that if you have a line of evenly spaced dots, it would remain evenly spaced once they're mapped onto the number line.
What the fuck?
Means is that if you have a line of due to all of the squishification happening here. So in this case, the visual understanding for what linearity means is that if you have a line of evenly spaced dots, it would remain evenly spaced once they're mapped onto the number line. One of these transformations is encoded with a 1x2 matrix, each of whose 2 columns has just a single entry. The 2 columns represent where the basis vectors land, and each one of those columns requires just one number, the number that basis vector landed on. This is actually a surprisingly meaningful type of transformation, with close ties to the dot product, and I'll be talking about that next video. Until then,
Yeah, intuitive is much more than better than just like learning about just reading. Just like build your foundation first. It is the solution, that's the question. Crazy. Guys, server, I hope that fucking light doesn't fuck my. Mhm.
hello again. So moving forward, I'll be assuming that you have a visual understanding of linear transformations.
What's this? Tensor.
In high school, I learned that physical quantities are either scalars, like temperature, which is just a number, or vectors, like velocity, which is a number and a direction. But there's a far more powerful mathematical object that shows up everywhere, from engineering to material science and even astronomy. It's called a tensor, to be specific, rank 2 and higher tensors. But here's the question, what the heck is a tensor? Most definitions I read were pretty vague, and then I learned that it is kind of like a matrix, but it's better to think in terms of indices. Yeah, none of that made any intuitive sense to me until now. I went through the entire lesson on tensors by Feynman lectures, and although he has not even defined even once what tensor is in the entire chapter, by the end of it, it all clicked, and oh my god, my mind was blown. So the goal of this video is we're going to pretend we don't know anything about tensors and start from scratch and step by step intuitively rediscover all these ideas ourselves. And if I do this right, we might even be able to intuitively understand why some of the most complex equations of physics, like the Einstein's field equations of general relativity, has to be written in the language of higher order tensors, not just vectors. All right? So if you're ready for this, let's begin. So Feynman, where do we start? Feynman says, Mahesh, let's start with a very familiar problem, Ohm's law. And I'm like, that's awesome. I love Ohm's law. It states that current through a wire will always be proportional to the voltage across it, which means current I is proportional to voltage V. But Feynman says, Mahesh, let's look at the vector version. In that, instead of current, we use current density J, which is basically current per unit area. And instead of voltage, we have electric field. So we get J proportional to
What the fuck is this?
We obviously won't show that it's the same form as I proportional to V, but it makes intuitive sense, right? I mean, through an area, if you put a stronger electric field, the electrons over there will experience a stronger force. They will drift faster, giving you a stronger current. So what do you mean? Feynman says, Mahesh, for a second, forget about coordinate axes and everything, and just look at what we got. We see that even though the current density is proportional to electric field, they are not in the same direction. And I'm like, that is interesting, because till now, every single vector equation I've seen, the left-hand side vector was exactly in the same direction as the right-hand side vector. For example, consider F equals ma. F and a will always be in the same direction. P equals mv, where P is the momentum, V is the velocity. P and V always in the same direction. And so now, for the very first time in my life, I am seeing an equation, a vector equation, in which the left-hand side vector and the right-hand side vector are not aligned. That is truly interesting, Feynman. Thank you for noting that. But it still does not explain why you said I got lucky. So here's what Feynman says, all right? This is the interesting part, okay? So in general, in this particular crystal, electric field and current density are not aligned, isn't it? But along the horizontal, they are aligned. That is a special case. And we chose our x-axis to be in that special direction. Similarly, along the y direction, when you put an electric field, you get no current density. That's another field direction itself. So this is our x and this is our y. And Feynman says, look, Mahesh, look. Now, even though the electric field is along the x-axis, the current density is not aligned. So do you think along E, we can decompose J along the x and y direction, giving us Jx and Jy. So this means, look, the electric field component along the x direction gives us both Jx and Jy. It gives us two components of current density. This is the key. And therefore, I would need two numbers. One number to represent how much I get Jx due to Ex. So we can write it this way. But I also need another number to calculate how much I get Jy from Ex. That's why that number was 0 and it was hiding. This is what Feynman meant when he said, I got lucky. We didn't see it. So we need two numbers just to calculate J from Ex. And the same thing, of course, applies to the Y component of the electric field here as well. We need two numbers to calculate J. One number to tell us how much you get Jx from Ey, and another number to tell us how much we get Jy from Ey. So look, in total, we need 4 numbers to fully describe conductivity, not 2, 4. And by the way, this itself took me some time to wrap my head around it because a lot is going on over here. So at first, if you don't get it, please don't be disheartened. This is not one for each component, 3 numbers in 3D. So in n dimensions, it requires n numbers. In other words, in n dimensions, it requires n power 1 numbers. And so from that, we can see conductivity is just an extension of that. Oh my God, this is it. This is why it actually makes sense to club them all together and under a same bucket and call them all something. We call them tensors. And so scalars are just rank 0 tensors. Vectors are rank 1 tensors. And so we're going to call conductivity as rank 2 tensors. But of course, our next question is, are there more quantities that are rank 2 tensors? And how do we, again, rediscover them?
Yeah, but like,
Mahesh,
what
if
is
you go back, what made
for, like,
conductivity a rank 2 tensor in the first place? Well, it all boiled down to one and only one thing. The J was proportional to E, but not necessarily aligned. If it was always in the same direction, conductivity would have been a scalar. But the light was spinning with the exact same angular velocity in both these directions. That makes sense. And so now, what kind of an object should piezoelectric constant should be? Think about it. It needs
Hello? Oh, hell nah.
I've been knocked down, I've been broken. Knocked down された、壊された。But hold that left was broken. でも言わなかったすべての言葉。Please be strange to stand once more. もう一度立つ力をくれ。This is what I'm fighting for. これが戦ってる理由。Stand again, not attacks this morning. これは終わらない。Stand again, stand again. Not attacks on but round our eyes. And then 地面から立ち上がってそして Stand again, round here. Not attacks ここにいる。Stand again, no fear. Not attacks 恐怖なし。Not attacks 何度でも変われても Not attacks 壊れても Not attacks.
I'm gonna take a break. Turn off the camera. I'm not. I'm just gonna play this song. I think it's fine. Yeah. But I'm gonna turn off my camera. I'm gonna be in my bed. Okay?
誰の取らない仕事の愚痴さえ夜空に溶けて綺麗な星になる明日がけなければいいなんて子供みたいなシェラ本気で笑い合ったアスファルトを蹴るそろいな足音僕らだけの自由なパレードの始まり誰もいない街僕らが主役ネオンの光がスポットライトになる、日常を脱ぎ捨てる真夜中の解放、誰かと分かち合う秘密の連帯感、一人乗るには出会えない恐怖人間関係の楽しさが闇を照らしていく、歩行町の上で叫んだあの決意恥ずかしくて今思い出せないけどあの時の熱量だけは本物だったお前が隣で強くなずいてくれたから世界が敵に見えても怖くなかったお前という味方が一人いるだけで人生はこんなにも大胆になれるんだ I hear late late night stroll street light glow お前とのトーク止まらないフロー誰もいないシティ僕らのグラウンド自由の音響かせるサウンド、酔った勢いで語ったアンビション君のプレゼン最高のコンディション歩き疲れたらコンビニで一息この瞬間が俺の生きる Like it 朝が来るの少しだけ遅らせて、今この時を永遠に刻む、日常を脱ぎ捨てる真夜中の解放、誰かと分かち合う秘密の連帯感、一人の夜には出会えない今日の人間関係の楽しさが闇を照らしてゆく拍手の音が現実を告げるまで拍手の音が現実を告げるまで Yo 真っ白な壁塗りつぶすインスピレーション君の筆先と僕の色が混ざって計画性のない僕らの後は重なり合うライン予期せぬ美しさ一人じゃ絶対に描けなかった高知君の出たら目が僕に自由を教える、綺麗すぎるのはつまらないって君の哲学が僕の殻を破る関係図なんてどこにもないけれど今描いてるこの感覚が全て混ざり合う色彩溢れ出すエナジー不協和音が最高のスパイスになる誰かと共に描く未来の地図一人じゃ描けない鮮やかな景色、ぶつかり合って生まれる新しい価値人間関係の楽しさが世界を得るってか失敗した線も君が書き換えるこれはこれでありって笑いながら完璧を目指す4連歌を楽しむその柔軟さが僕の心を焦がした社会という大きな壁に僕らの印を小さくても確かに残していく誰かの目に留まるその日を夢見て今日も二人秀を走らせる Express yourself let the colors flow 君とのセッション止まらないフロー壁をキャンバスに夢をグラフィティ二人で作る新しいシティ Red for the passion Blue for the soul 混ざり合って目指す一つのゴール一人の才能限界超えて二人のアート世界へ向けて、正解なんて誰にも決めさせない 僕らの感覚を信じ抜くだけ誰かと共に描く未来の地図一人じゃ描けない鮮やかな景色、ぶつかり合って生まれる新しい価値人間関係の楽しさが世界を彩っていく、次はどんな色で僕らを驚かそうか僕らを驚かそうか
バーのカウンター高額意の誘惑邪魔なジャズが僕らの言葉を包む長い付き合い今さら語ることもないはずなのに夜は深まってゆく二個の方向失敗の口全部飲み干して氷を鳴らすお前がいてくれたから今日まで来れた言葉にすると少し照れくさいけれどこのチンバンさえも死んだ世の中背中で語り合える僕らのスタイル熟成された僕らの歴史時間が分組んだ深い味わい長く続く関係の心地よい闇一人で磨くより輝く魂時間をかけて気づいたこの寝台人間関係の楽しさが夜を贅沢にするお互いの頂点を知り尽くしているだからこそ優しくなれる時があるお前らしいなって笑うその顔何よりの僕の肯定になると愛の幻想を忘れさせてくれるこの隠れ家僕らの聖域明日への活力ここでチャージしてまた戦場へ戻ってくんだ
Amber liquid deep talk classy night お前との絆最高の light Just reflect it's the soul base moves the heart 二人の物語 never apart Years pass by we grew up wise お前の瞳に映る俺の rise old fashioned way keeping it true 感謝してるぜ my friend to you
変わらないもの変わりゆくもの全てを受け入れて乾杯しよう長く続く関係の心地よ for me 一人で磨くより輝く魂時間をかけて気づいたこの死んで人間関係の楽しさが夜を贅沢にする最後の一杯をゆっくり味わおうお前の正論僕のわがままぶつかり合って火花が散る午後分かり合えないと背を向けたけど心のどこかでお前の声を待ってる違いがあるからこそ惹かれ合う磁石のように反発しては引き寄せてパズルのピース形は違うけど隣れば一つの絵が見えてくる摩擦が生む僕らの熱量痛みの数だけ深く刻まりぶつかり合う不器用な愛の形一人じゃ知れない自分の限界葛藤の先に見つける 真実人間関係の楽しさが心を磨いてく仲直りのきっかけいつもからなくてお前の差し出した安いお菓子一つ悪かったなって言葉はなくてもその空気感で全てが許される完璧な関係なんてどこにもない歪んでいるから僕ららしいんだこのデコボコを愛していこうと思う二人で作る唯一無二の形をねえどうして僕らはこんなに違うんだろうね好きな食べ物も休日の過ごし方も大切にしてる価値観もバラバラで一人の方がよっぽど平穏で楽かもしれないでもさ君とぶつかった後の何とも言えないすっきりした気分あれを知っちゃうともう一人の平穏には戻れないやなだよね違うからこそ僕は僕を君をもっと知りたくなるんだCloudy vibes puzzling complete 君との関係最高のフィット不規則なシェイプ重なるフェイト愛と憎しみ神糸へのステイト Fighting for truth growing up fast この絆を永遠にラス違いを楽しもうありのまま二人のストーリードラマチックなまま壁を壊して向き合う勇気その先にしかない光があるぶつかり合う不器用な愛の形一人じゃ知れない自分の限界葛藤の先に見つける真実人間関係の楽しさが心を磨いてくその顔変わらないくせに思わず笑みが溢れる、少し増えたシワ大人びたスーツでも話し出せばあの頃の僕ら時間の壁を一瞬で飛び越えて記憶のアーカイブを二人で芋癖になっていた空白の期間それさえも最愛のスパイスになるお前変わったなお前こそそんなやりとりが何より嬉しい止まっていた時計が動き出す重なり合う二つのタイムライン時を超えてつながる絵にしの強さ一人で歩むより確かなしあと再愛がもたらす新しいエネルギー人間関係の楽しさが命をつないでゆくお前が知らない場所での苦労僕が話すこの街での小さな成功刺激を受けてまた強くなれる友の存在は最高の鏡だまた会おうその言葉のもう次はもっと面白い自分を見せたいそう思えることが生きる糧になる僕らのパレードはまだ終わらない Back together like we never left お前との再会最高のギフト Time flies fast but the bond is deep 守り抜いた約束 I gotta keep different paths but the same origin お前の成功俺の win-win next session looking forward to it 熱い情熱また燃やそうぜ bit 離れていても心は一つそれぞれの場所で輝き続けよう時を超えてつながる絵にしの強さ一人で歩むより確かなしあと再愛がもたらす新しいエネルギーよ人間関係の楽しさが命をつないでゆく、 の中小型溶ける音遠くで聞こえる子供たちの笑い声今日もお疲れ様の一言で一日の緊張がさらりと溶けていく特別なことなんて起きなくてもいいこうして二人で夕日を眺めるそれだけで人生は十分すぎるほどあたかだと心がささやいている黄金色の光包まれる奇跡穏やかな波が心に寄せてくる安らぎを分かち合う至福の時隣に誰かがいる静かな校庭一人の夕暮れより鮮やかな色人間関係の楽しさが心を潤していく明日への不安少しはあるけれど大丈夫だよって君が微笑むから根拠のない自信が湧いてくる君の魔法に今日も甘えていると愛の喧騒が遠くの BGM 僕らのテラスは時間が止まった場所この平洋を守り抜きたいと思う君とために Yeah sunset glow feeling so fine 君との時間最高のワイン Golden hour magic in the air 光の絆 nothing can compare Slow down the tempo enjoy the view 新しい明日へ refresh and new ただそこにいる君の存在俺の人生最大の恋さえ言葉はいらないただ手を握ってこの一瞬を心に焼き付けよう安らぎを分かち合う至福の時隣に誰かがいる静かな校庭一人の夕暮れより鮮やかな色人間関係の楽しさが心を潤してゆく一番星を見つけて家へ帰ろうデジタルワンフィスデジタルワンシデジタルワンムシデジタルはワンの粒デジタルな海を漂うメッセージ深夜のチャットスタンプ一つで心が軽くなる不思議な今物理的な距離は遠く離れてても繋がっているという安心感の毛布一人の部屋 PC のファンが回るでも孤独じゃない誰かがそこにいる顔も知らない誰かの優しい言葉に救われる夜があることを知っている飛び交うシグナル愛のこと冷たい茶色に体温が宿る形を変えて届く人のぬくもり一人じゃないと光が瞬く新しい時代のつながりの楽しさ人間関係の可能性が世界を救ってゆくSNS のノイズ疲れることもあるでもそこで見つけた大切な動詞趣味を語り合い夢をシェアして新しいコミュニティ僕らに居場所リアルもデジタルもそうキャメなんてない大切なのはそこに心が画面の向こう側の君の態度を信じてるこの新しい日の Physical connection analog heart 画面越しでも never apart Zero and one creating a vibe 君の言葉に俺は subscribe Network of love global and wide 孤独な夜も no place to hide Stay online Stay in touch デジタルのぬくもり Thank you so much 恋す 速で解く思いのかけら明日への希望をどんくらさせ風と書く人のぬくもり一人じゃないと光が瞬く新しい時代のつながりの楽しさ人間関係の可能性が世界を救ってゆくお休みの合図ログオフしてもつながってる場所からのエルシャ from the roof ここからならどこまでも届く気がするくじけそうな共に送る言葉ありきたりな頑張れじゃなくてお前ならできるって心の底から信じていることを伝えたいんだ一人の戦いじゃ限界があるから僕が後ろで風を送るよ倒れそうになったら寄りかかればいい僕らの肩はそのためにあるんだ響けこの重い空の向こうへ君の背中を強く押すように誰かを応援するその熱量一人で燃えるより明るい未来支え合うことで越えていける壁人間関係の楽しさが勇気をくれる僕が目な時君がいてくれたその恩返しをさせてほしいんだ情けは人のためならずと言うけれど君の笑顔が僕の喜びになる孤独な挑戦をパレードに変えよう仲間がいれば道は開ける世界中に僕らの声を響かせよう僕らはここにいると oh yeah
Shout it out, let the world hear 君の挑戦俺は no fear Backing you up like a solid rock 限界の扉二人で not believe in yourself like I believe in you 最高の未来掴もうぜ true 絆は武器愛は防具二人のストーリー最高の Vogue
一人じゃないから強くなれる信じ合う心が奇跡を起こす誰かを応援するその熱量一人で燃えるより明るい未来支え合うことで越えていける壁人間関係の楽しさが勇気をくれる 記憶の団形今一つの大きな絵になる出会いと別れ喜びと痛みこれまでの全てが愛しいモザイク一人で生きてきたつもりだったけど振り返れば無数の手が添えられていたあの時笑い合った誰かの横顔あの時叱ってくれた誰かの言葉その一つ一つが今の僕を形作っている大切なパーツなんだ不完全な僕らが織りなす模様遠くから見ればこんなに美しい人間関係の楽しさが描いた奇跡一人じゃ完成しなかったこの人生つながることで僕は永遠になれるモザイクの輝きが未来を照らす明日出会う誰かもきっと新しい色僕の世界をもっと鮮やかにしてくれる恐れずに心を開いていこう人間という最高に面白い旅一人の夜 PC の前で思う生きててよかって心からそれは君がお前があいつがそこにいたから
いやね、結局人生って誰と出会ってどう笑ったかただそれだけのことなのかもしれない傷つくこともあるし面倒なこともあるでもそれ以上に誰かと心が通じ合った瞬間のあの震えるような喜びそれがあるから僕らはまた新しい誰かを求めて歩き出す僕の人生というモザイクに色を添えてくれた全ての人へありがとうこれからもよろしくね Full circle mosaic complete 君との絆最高の Great fragments of time Forming a soul 愛の力で目指す final goal No more solo We are a team 二人の現実超える dream Life is a canvas Let's keep it bright ありがとう全てのつながりに light
描き続けよう終わりのない物語世界という名の巨大なモザイクを人間関係の楽しさが描いた奇跡一人じゃ完成しなかったこの人生つながることで僕は永遠になれるモザイクの輝きが未来を照らすまた明日誰かの笑顔に会いに行こうまた明日誰かの笑顔に会いに行こう右耳に前左耳に僕混ざり合う二つのバックグラウンドお前が教えた古いソウルミュージック僕が進めた新しいエレクトロ全然合わない好みが逆に刺激これやばくないと目が輝く自分一人の世界じゃ出会えなかったから白を君が筆に乗せてくれた僕のモノクロな思考がグラデーション鮮やかに変わる驚きと発見の連続 Playlist shared Horizons expanded 君のセンスそれなのに landed DPM シンプロ心地よいグルーヴ新しい自分へステップムーブイヤホンの半分預けた信頼音楽の好みで暴く正体 No skip needed Every track is gold 二人の物語ビートに乗せてどうぞ音の数だけ増えていく共通言語言葉 以上に深く入り込むメロディー新しい扉を開く君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げていく二人の趣味が合うことだけが正解じゃない違いを楽しむその余裕が愛おしい、お前の嫌いなものが僕の宝物理解できない面白がる贅沢そうやって少しずつ世界を許していく僕らの境界線音楽が溶かしていく妖怪を超えた先に待っていたのは見たこともない輝くエモーショナル不協和音さえスパイスに変えて奏で続けよう僕らのアンサンブル新しい扉を開け君の手のぬくもり知らない自分に出会うその瞬間の喜び一人じゃたどり着けない高い場所がある人間関係の楽しさが視界を広げていく次の曲は二人で選ぼう숱한 자유로 배운 왜 유리 위한 어젯밤 기가 10개 남아 의자다리는 아직 소리를 아끼고 비어있는 테이블마다 다른 그림자 이른 공기가 천천히 자리를 펴고 단어를 꺼내는 작은 동작 차가운 금속 위로 손끝이 스쳐 말보다 먼저 켜지는 기계의 불 이대로 간 이 옷들을 받아 적어 창가에 내려앉은 흐린 바람 아직 이름 없는 이 시간 조용히 숨을 고르는 room The day is waiting 문은 아직 닫혀있고 거리도 잠든 채로 밑 한 줄이 바닥을 건너 아침을 펼쳐 Lights and slowly breathe in the
The fuck is this? Back. I probably took more than one already.
Telepathy in the noise of private frequency in a crowded city 言葉を返さない究極のコミュニケーション境界線は今ざっとExpanding the canopy of the black fabric ずぶ濡れの肩を不意に覆った And a small roof offered in the sudden shower やりにいる腰の曇った空の色彩隣り合わせになった名もなき同行者 Share a heartbeat under the lyric drops 駅までの短い距離を結ぶ信頼言葉はいらないただ濡れないという安心不要な焦燥アスファルトに叩きつけただ歩幅を合わせるリズムに没入する Droplets sliding down the metallic
For being capital and
It's not an intrusion, it's a silent rescue 不要な壁をシフトの中に溶かしただ差し出された持ち手の角度を噛みしめる Dancing
Yes. Oh, fuck. I cannot do this.
The soul is dry. 不機嫌な天候をメロディーに乗せ Cruising through the grace of the rainy street.
Are you studying right now? Same. I'm also studying. Let's start with study. Learning about working capital. Working capital is actually is asset, current asset, and it's current liability. And
Water puddles reflecting the two silhouettes 水たまりに映る重なり合った影 Is there a shelter in the simple gesture ただ隣を歩くというその選択が自分という
explain the cash conversion cycle and compare tissue cash conversion cycle. So typical operating cycle, so the number of days in inventory plus the number of days of receivable. Measure the time needed to convert raw material to cash from sales. So like days in inventory, interesting, and days in acquisition. And this net operating cycle, the measure of the time from paying customers, from paying suppliers for material to collect cash from the subsequent sales and goods produced from this supply. So cash conversion cycle, net asset from the days of inventory, days of receivable, and days of acquisition. I think we have to do this couple on cash flows. Next is operating and cash flow conversion. Now raw materials, sales goods and credit collect cashes. Inventory days, receivable days, and cycle. Ah, activity ratio, number of days receivable, account is receivable times overall.
Echoes of footsteps in the tile passage.
Account receivable, inventory turnover, and account payable. Managing account.
Stepping through the rhythm of the open door 開けられた扉の流れに乗って The rhythm is smooth, the gap is wide 不器用な施設をグルーヴに変え Floating in the grace of the shared space
I don't get this.
Sunlight streaming into the newly opened gaps. 光が誇る
Oh, okay.
壺を踊らせ
The hinge is quiet but the impact is loud 明日優勝 careful 一度だけ買い離して Deep in the flow of the gem朝の慣れたクロスウォーク朝のほどほど譲り合った車列 A ripple of peace and the morning rush 威嚇の角度が生んだかすかな余裕ブレーキを緩める指先の優しさ Invisible threads connecting the strangers いつもより少しだけ軽やかなアクセル誰かの一日を肯定するサイン情報の濁流を一瞬だけ止めて再生がし空気が車内を満たしていく That's the real view reflecting the smile back 未来に映る名もなき探偵
Suppose a supplier
It's a natural
Later,
flow
with some food from
そう
supplier.
滑る光のリューチ不要な苛立ちうる語り捨て去り淡い標高の中を滑り出す世界はまだ善意の連鎖を信じている
discount for 10 days. The full amount is due in 40 days. Days being discount. If you wait 40 days, you are effectively borrowing the money for extra 40 days. I don't get it. The discount 1% and there's number. The annualized cost of skipping that 1% it is an opportunity cost. By not paying on day 10, you give up 1% to keep your cash on on annual basis. That choice costs you nearly 10%. If the company can borrow from them at 8%, you should borrow the money from the bank and pay the support on day 10. If the company can borrow from the bank at 80%, they should borrow the money from the bank and pay the support on day 10. Why? Because paying money, paying
The traffic light changes, but the feeling stays. 明日という速度を一度だけ落として Floating in the echo of a small kindness 無垢なつながりに背中を預ける
I still think, why are you getting from this supply?
目的地へ続く道が輝きを増し
By not paying on day
最
10,
後の
you
手
give up.
振りが視界の端で暖かく残る
What are you getting from the supplier?
Forgot a handle in the office bin 誰かの配慮が置き忘れられた目の跡 A transparent shelter for the next sudden cloud 持ち手に巻かれた目印の青い手間に合わせの優しさがつなぐずぶ濡れの回避 Anonymous shield against the liquid sky 駅までの数分を救い出す忘れ物名前も知らない誰かの余白に寄り添う Arrhythmia drops hidden the plastic sheet
And this is like
you're
choosing between saving money with discount and keeping the cash flow You get 1% reward for being fast. If the bill is 10,000, you only pay 990 and keep the $10 in your pocket. You miss the ability to use that 990 for anything else for the next 30 days. Use it for point, buy other money, or okay, so it's like if the price is like 100, if the price is like $1,000, but if you pay it in the 10 days period, it means you basically get a discount. If you pay it on day 40 using discount, you get liquidity. You keep 100% in the bank account for the extra 30 days to use it for the business operation. But if you miss the 1% discount, the hidden interest.
Water pooling in the folds of the fabric 畳んだ後に滴る誰かの時間の後
Giving up
Is there a
sense
soul
of
in the
world.
rusty spring ただそこにあったという救済の形が冷え切った指先を静かに温める Holding the rib of the left umbrella
I get it now. The cost of that trade credit again. 20%. Objective of short term ensure that distribution
나는 breeze 벤치니 옷을 고몰래 비のバイブレ模様 A natural shelter from the direct sun Resting in the shade of the park canopy 公園の木陰で意識をにゃるめ The light is filtered, the air is cool 不器用な直射をメロディーに変え Drifting in the green sea of the urban oasis
Yeah, 誰かが植えたちこの数十年の重みで葉を広げてで程度もされる無償のスーズ Shed oxygen of the old guardians 動かないままで享受する放題な余白意味を持たない緑のさざめきに同調する Yeah, empty bench waiting for the next one The rap pen 昨日剥げた国際の素朴な手触り It's not a gift, it's a fundamental grace 不評な理屈を土の中へ返しただそこに座れるゆく事実を噛みしめる
Resting in the shade of the park canopy 公園の木陰で意識を緩め The light is filtered, the air is cool 不器用な直射をメロディーに変え Drifting in the green sea of the urban oasis
Yeah, distant sound of children playing in the sand 砂場で響く
あー
無邪気の笑い声の破片 Is there a peace in the midday sun ただ健やかに過ぎるという景色の一部が自分という歪みを平坦に整えていく The wind is soft, the thoughts are aloft 明日という距離を一度だけ調整して
Deep in the rustle of the living branch
Yeah 音が一夜ハートを立てて低い空へ飛び立つ木漏れ日が飛ぶ間をゆっくりとにしてスライドしていく
C 부분 Describe issues, objectives, and compare methods for music.
Soft hum of the neighbors heater through the wall 隣室から漏れるかすかなけど Hope a silent proof
Ah,
of
yeah,
life
yeah,
in
my brain
the
is fucked up.
concrete heart
私メ method internal planning.
Sinking with the breath of the midnight city 深夜の金管を深く吸い込み The pulse is slow, the connection is real 不透明な孤独を安らぎに変えて Floating in the
Working capital
grid
liquidity.
of the sleep
Baik climate as secure and related for with credit. Unconnected or
誰もいない通りで等間隔に高く舞いちょっと遠いビルの浴場でまたく赤い灯火ビルの Signals of a steady existence 動かないままで受け取る生存の合図同じ闇を共有しているという無言の連帯 The light reflecting on the kitchen tiles 換気扇が吸い上げる一日のコリカル It's not a void, it's a collective
Secret loans,
不要な
asset
強
base,
制を冷えた床
pledge
に
fixed asset,
委ね
receivable
ただ
and
世
business
界が
collateral.
眠っていることの美しい
Factoring,
を知
sales,
る
sales
Sinking with
receivable.
the breath of the midnight city 深夜の銀行を深く吸い込み The pulse is low, the
Non-bank.
connection is real 不透明な孤独を
Non-bank
安
on
ら
web
ぎに変
based
えて
lenders, first world rules.
In the
Non-bank on
grid
web
of
based lenders.
sleeping
Estimates capital market source, commercial paper, debt, liability, effort stock. Source of EGBC, compute financial source, based on specific. Company size is considered asset as
Thin vibration
cool.
the city's undercurrent 地下を流れる巨大なジェット液の鼓動 Is there a harmony in the static air ただ目覚めを待つという静かな準備
Suppose a company has a current ratio of 2.5 times and a current ratio of 2.5 and quick ratio of 1.5. If the company's current liability is 100 million, the amount of inventory is closest to
Silence of the shared night.
the current ratio equals 2.5 is blah 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 total liability. But it's just 2 point. I'm pretty sure this is our asset. Current ratio is financial. This is initial current. Yeah, it's current asset. Total asset. Current asset. The total liability is 100 million. The amount of inventory is closest to the quick ratio, which is I think inventory or I think it's asset, not cash. There's at the short-term equity, short-term security, short-term securities, it's receivable. The asset the quick ratio is, oh my god, how do you get the amount of inventory that's closest? The current asset is 250 million, so the current asset is 150 million. Therefore, quick ratio, oh it's good. What do you got this? Current asset minus inventory. So the current the inventory is given the following financial statement data, calculate the operating cycle for this company. It sales operating cycle, I think it's the whole. So account receivable, account payable, 250, ending balance is 300. No, it's not like that. I think account receivable, account payable. No. Account receivable plus inventory. So 300 minus account payable. So I don't know the result. 500, ending 300, so baru 1 8 tambah 3 11 oh fuck yeah. I don't remember this. Number of receivable. Oh, it sells? Okay, sebut dia. Purchase.
連結数が手渡されたお釣りに添えられた一
Tadinya
言
pakai cycle
A warm resonance in the convenience store ビニールパイからの擦れる乾いたマセージ深夜の店員が見せた一瞬の right Soft delivery of the plastic package 冷え切った指先が受け取る重み意味のない雑談よりも深い共鳴自動ドアの向こう側へ連れ出す温度ただお疲れ様を心で反芻する Steam rising from the paper
Maksud
hot cup
gua
紙コッ
operate
プ
this
の底
cycle
に宿る小さな祈り It's not just
There's
caffeine
number of
It's
business
a
and
mental
operating cycle is a 4-month cash conversion. Let's operate the cycle. Closest so gimana pertama inventory dulu. Cara inventory itu sama 2000 200 bagi 2 dibagi I think it's credits no cost of goods sold oh. Ada 30 jawabannya 21 this is days in inventory cost of goods the next one is kalau sebetulnya 3000 ya revenue sih ya revenue bagi 40 no account payable I think gross profit no I think 4.000 I think account receivable sorry I think gross profit purchase itu kenapa ya? Kenapa? A company increasing its script for customer to 1 time to method to 1 time to 6 will most likely experience an increase from cash. Harus dulu sih sebenarnya apa namanya? Bola satu plus discount satu discount 35 useless misalnya cost of credit itu cocok satu plus discountnya sama soal 110 should take a break
Dusty taillights forming a red constellation 赤灯車のハザードが告げる小さなヘレイ It's not a rule, it's a living kindness 不要なクラクションを夜風に逃がしただ円滑に流れるという意志を
먼저 잘했어.
Heart is blue, 붓기 섞은 슈테고 시라베니 갈때 cruising the gap of the urban evening. The gate rises, the spirit flies. 明日という加速を一度だけほどして floating in the grace of the shared road.
7% dari 1000-an drop frames. Crazy. I know apa sih.
Gliding through the rhythm of the crossing flow. Groovy good in a yofu groove. Ni no se the signal is red. The heart is blue. Fuki soku na shute. Oshirabe ni kaete cruising. The gap of the urban evening. Back mirror ni tozakaru. Saigo no tenmetsu shingo. Shizuka na kaso ga yoru no kukuta ni tokete iku you.
Sorry. Opposite app, second cycle.
Slow drip soaking the dark soil. Then inch day talos channel.
I need to start making coffee.
Life breathing in the communal space. 風に
ごめん
たまる
コーヒー
透明な石の輝き。乾き癒やす地の奥底の静かなうごめき。Shed roots in the limited clay. 動かないままで見守る他人の一がしみ。情報の砂漠を一滴の水がかき換える Cradle tendrils reaching for the sunlight. 横を求める粒の懸命な子 It's not a chore, it's a ripping life support 不要な孤独を街上の影に潜ませただ生きているという事実の連鎖を愛す Oh yeah The leaf is green, the leaf is green, the love is seen 明日という感想を一度だけぼそり止めて Deep in the pulse of the chlorophyll
What is it, right?
Watching the sip of the potted plant touch you and on me を調べに乗せて
What the fuck? Oh,
The
nice.
pieces grow 不透明な季
What?
節を安らぎに変え
It's like someone
Drifting
here.
in the nostalgia of the shared
You.
garden.
Are my next victim? Fuck. The coffee doesn't taste like coffee, it tastes like fucking water. Man. It has something not to put in cycle? Operating cycle is persisting. And this is net operating cycle.
Smell of the wet earth in the corridor 廊下に漂う雨上がりのような眼光 Is there a link in the sprouting stem ただ潤されているというその静止画が自分という乾きを静かに救済する Watching the sip of the potted plant ヘッジ上の水を調べに乗せて The growth is slow, the pieces grow 不透明な季節を安らぎに変え Drifting in the nostalgia of the shared garden 最後のニーズが土の中に吸い込まれ気配が消える新しい目が光の方へと静かに背筋を伸ばす
an increased cash on hand, and a higher level of uncollectible income, and increasing the average collection.
動かないままで見つめる光の本家孤独な頃に落ちる確かな目印 All lens rotating on the heavy gears
A higher level of uncollectible accounts may occur with a larger average income.
It's a riffing promise
Suppose a company uses trade credit with the terms 10 and net 50. If the company pays account on 50th and 50th day, the effective quarterly cost given the discount rate is closest to US Google and net 50. And they It's 15 cents. The fuck? Itu 10 ya? Number of days beyond this company. No, it is 50. It is 15 minutes. It is 4 minutes. Right? Yeah, it's 14. 30 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna fucking. From that program. Oh, scheiße, bitte. Oh, sorry. Okay. My brain kind of farted a little bit. Was the fart good? This What? Which of the following best describe the net operating cycles? Cash flow cycle. Net itu berarti semuanya dari a measure of time for the raw material into cash themselves. The measure of time from paying supplier for material to collecting cash from the subsequent sale. Different from inventory. Net operating cycle. Cost of goods sold. This is fucking wasting all this. And it's just the other 60 companies. Okay. So we need to calculate the average time in inventory first. And ending inventory is 0, so it's 0 days. I think 0 days. Yeah, so 0 days.
鏡の中で重なり合う自分と誰かのシルエット新しいじわがまた一つ物語の続きを刻み始める
Account receivable is 6,000 divided by divided by 3,600 365. $60 days. Yeah. And the next one is account receivable. So 3 minus 365. 730 and I think it's 365 as well. So 365.
Fin sound of a cancel on a fake pad. It's one shit
Not bad. No, 8,000.
Concentrated silence and the wooden hole. Reading this score of the library silence.
Oh, okay. A is gonna be the most correct answer. So I'm still guessing. Because it's 60 days because it's not with 60 something and 0. The supplier offer a company trade credits of 2.5. A company choose to pay on 45th day. The effective annualized cost is 3.
互いに干渉せず深めるそれぞれの没頭 Symmetry of the focused minds 動かないままで記憶する施策の振動実際の実相を一歩ずつ慎重に降りていく Sunlight in the dust above the table 気象の塵を可視化する午後の車庫 It's not a cage it's a century of thought
1 minus 2%.
不要な饒舌をしおりの前に挟みただ言葉の重力を全身で受け止める
And the cost is 50. It's definitely not. $17%?
Faint smell of ink in old letter bindings 各表紙が放つ数十年という Tate's like Is there a bridge in the printed word ただ誰かが残したという思考の跡が
What's the disco P? Fuck, the disco P is...
静かに救済する The book is closed, the truth is exposed 明日という見どこを一度だけ保留して
Which of the following is most likely classified as a secondary source of liquidity? Second one? Liquidifying asset? Trade, credit. I think bank line credit. The company is experiencing a pull on its liquidity. Which of the following is the most likely? Cause absolute inventory, uncontrollable, uncollectible receivable, reduced credit limit. Reduced credit limit.
Blue illumination of the stainless pendle 触れる階のボタンを代わりに押す指 A vertical corporation in the small cage 顔を補佐する親指のさりげない緊張
Kalau kreditnya makin
すれ違う
kecil,
瞬間に落ちるかすかな会釈の影
enggak betul Apakah scoring ratio 2.2 and quotation 1.4? What is the current availability? So the asset is 440 million. Quick ratio is 440 minus 200 minus inventory equals 1.4. 450 minus inventory 1.1 plus 200. So wait, no.
Metallic echo, the sliding doors 滑らかに開き張りで口が告げる到着 It's not a duty, it's a riff and ritual 不要な焦りを影目の中に封じ込めただ次に続く誰かのために隙間を作る
When forecasting short-term cash flow, what is the typical frequency of financing? So short-term is for among banks' source of short-term financing. Which type of credit line is considered most that is revolving? Yeah, it is. For a company with weaker credits, which are the following short-term financing methods? I think C is asset-based loan. I know that. If a company changes its credit term for customer on the term, that is the most likely to decrease in. Okay, gue coba ngetik. So duit itu kayak netnya 30 ke 45. Kalau 45 berarti itunya bakal berkurang persentasenya. Okay. The decrease in the number of days receivable, an increase in the average collection. I don't get. It's B. The answer is 1. The decrease in uncollectible income. B A C A B A A C C B. Several of them again. Number 4 is prob. Primary, secondary liquid, then liquidating asset. Oh, okay. So what's the answer? Liquidating asset. Secondary source of methods which financial and operating position. Oh, should I say? Next is number 5. The company is experiencing a pull on its liquidity. I don't know what credit limits looks like. What did I answer 5C? I 5B. Which is B? Oh, the answer is C. Reduce. You mix up the two types of pressure. A drag when money is come low, or pull when the money has. Oh, scheiße, yeah. Last one is a company with weaker credit. No, it's while both are weaker credit, the specific method of selling account receivable with a discount is called factoring. Is lower when you pledge asset and discount. So you own the asset. Oh, scheiße, yeah. With credit is specific method of selling account receivable. This is selling. Delay?
The door is near, the mind is clear 明日という外でそう一度だけ Who
This is
cares
what? That was it. Sometimes. Welcome to the secret law. It's clear, right? The become changes credit samples. Oh my! I do not know. Also the answer number 2 is inventory. So 360. Wait, so inventory is cost of goods sold. Account receivable is revenue, but accounts payable, I think it's gross profit plus days of inventory. It is the gross profit. No, it's account receivable. Sorry, it's a cost of goods sold. Plus the inventory. Sorry, ending inventory minus beginning inventory is 300. Inventory calculation. Okay. Account payable is the amount of
frosty breath disappearing into the gray sky 白い吐息が混ざり合う感謝の温度 It's not a chore, it's a communal breathing 不要なフェイを雪山の影に埋めてただ踏み出しやすい筒の感触を愛す Walking on the rhythm of the sidewalk path フォト能力 your skill ステップに乗せて Ground is hard, the spirit is warm 不自由な季節メロディーに変え Cruising the grace of the winter morning
purchase.
The ice is clear, the way is near
Oh, that's why account receivable or inventory use inventory use cost of goods sold because cost of goods basically from the inventory how much is sold and the cost so the cost and number 3 there's receivable basically you sell that's kind of so it's 200 which is the revenue. This is your base and then you can also select after the items so this makes sense. Okay, let's take a break though. Wait, give me a second. I think I'm gonna take a break. I've tried studying again, but like gua nggak fokus aja. Jadi mendingan gua cancel ya. It's been 2 jam, 2 jam. So lumayan. That is it for the stream. Thank you